We have breaking news in GARAGEGATE. You know what GARAGEGATE is, right? Joe Biden. Tonight, I'm fixing to show you a side of the documents that was found in the garage that you need to be fully aware of tonight. Stay with me. I'm about to educate you. But before I do, I must show you that we now have proof beyond the shadow of a doubt, proof positive that Hunter Biden had access to the documents. Why? Look at your screen. What vehicle is Hunter driving? Yes, the Corvette. And he's driving it in the garage to park it right next to a stack of top secret documents that all you have to do is take a picture of on your phone and send them to whoever will pay you the most money for it. He had extensive business ties to China. Now this document, this stash of document has to do with Ukraine. And how many knows the big news in the world for the last 2 years has been what? Ukraine. Let's talk about Ukraine. Are you ready for a little education? My question to you tonight: what was Joe Biden doing in Kyiv, Ukraine, on January the 17th, 2017? Now, what does that date mean, ladies and gentlemen? What's normally happening around January the 20th in a presidential cycle? What's normally happening? The new administration is getting ready to come in, right? January the 20th. Hello. Now, it is very unusual for an outgoing vice president to travel abroad during the last month of the current presidential administration. Why? Because he's busy getting ready for the transition, getting his documents together, getting his papers ready to move to his library. Whenever we studied the National Archives, there was no foreign travel at the end of the Bush term by Dick Cheney. There was no foreign travel by Al Gore in the Clinton administration. No foreign travel in that last month of vice presidential and presidential terms. Because during that time, before the inauguration, the outgoing vice president's duty is to the peaceful transfer of power and to help the president and the president-elect and the vice president-elect with an orderly transition. Now, the closer to Inauguration Day, the more important it becomes, ladies and gentlemen, for that vice president to be at the White House, to be busy doing what vice presidents are supposed to be doing during that particular time. Now, remember the date. Don't forget the date. January the 17th is the date, okay? Now, 3 days, see that? Before the Trump-Pence inauguration. 3 days before that inauguration, ladies and gentlemen, where was Uncle Joe? Where was he? Why, he was in Kiev, Ukraine. By the way, that's where this stack of documents by the Corvette, that's what it's dealing with, is Ukraine. And that's what the second impeachment was all about. The failed impeachment, I might add. He was in Ukraine 3 days before the Trump-Pence administration. Why? I'm going to make it real plain why he's there. He's there because he can't afford to make a phone call to the Ukraine. He was creating an opportunity for himself to speak privately, one-on-one, with the mafia bosses of a corrupt country whose natural gas company was paying his deviant son $83,000 a month for consulting fees. What Biden was doing there above all was not talking on the phone. No, he needed privacy, away from everyone but him and the bosses. Everyone knows that a president or a vice president speaks on a secure phone line. Hello, Venman. Anybody remember Veneman? Okay. Anything you say as a president or vice president is securely recorded. Whatever Biden had to say in Kyiv, he knew he did not want it overheard by the munchkins in the White House who listen to every phone call, transcribe them. So only by getting face-to-face in Kyiv with his Ukrainian contacts could Biden be certain of his ability to have communication with them without anybody in our government or theirs knowing the conversation. The truth is, we will never know the identities of every person with whom Biden spoke or met in January 2017. Now, why is he in Kyiv? The inauguration's in 3 days. He's tying up loose ends, darling. And now we wonder why the documents were missing. What was said in those meetings? Remember, Joe Biden bragged about that meeting, lest you forget.
Went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
Yeah, that's the meeting that he had. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new House of Representatives with new investigative power. There's a new sheriff in town. His name's Donald Trump. He rules through Marjorie Taylor Greene, who rules through Kevin McCarthy. These things are about to be revealed. That I can assure you. I predict a resignation of Joe Biden. That's when it's going to get real interesting, ladies and gentlemen, because Kamala cannot be president. She's not a natural-born citizen. Yes, she's a citizen, but not natural-born. If you want more information on that, go to FHTV and search for Kamala. And I did a whole class on that. Now, before I go tonight, we have breaking news that I want to educate you on. Twitter file 14.0. Have y'all forgotten about these Twitter files? They're coming out every day. Of course, the only place you'll hear them is places like this. But I want to specifically talk about Twitter file 14.0. Now, it's very important that you never forget what's going on at Twitter. I want you to look at your screen. This graphic shows you all of the dots that are being connected with these Twitter files. Yahweh wakes up the richest man in the world, tells him to go and buy Twitter. A man that doesn't like Trump, a man that did not vote for Trump, and yet a man that is exposing to the world, almost building a case. One can only wonder who's going to take up this case. Now, don't you forget that this Twitter graphic I just showed you is displaying one of the greatest attacks on American freedoms. That file proves that the discrimination on Twitter was not from a private company, as we were led to believe. It was from a private company that was a de facto organization of the United States government. That becomes a real problem, because now your very First Amendment right, listen, how brilliant. If we don't want to get caught violating your First Amendment right, what do? We go through a shadow company, we violate your rights through the company, and we're free and clear. But the problem is, you're not free and clear, because God woke up a man, a rich man, told him to buy a company that's revealing it all. And the latest release, 14.0, is very interesting. And it proves to you and I why we owe our allegiance to Donald Trump. Many people don't understand our great allegiance to a man. I get that. I do. I hear it all the time. Why don't y'all go on to somebody else? To ask me to move on to someone else is to ask me to give up everything I believe in. Justice. Justice. Twitter 14.0 proves why we must remain committed and loyal to Donald Trump. What is 14.0? It's massive. How many of you remember the Nunes memo? Some of you don't remember. That was seemed like an eternity ago. But the Democrats, I'll break it down, had been accusing Donald Trump of colluding with Russia to steal the 2016 presidential election. They said they had evidence of this. They said that President Trump's agenda, his policies, and his entire presidency was illegitimate. They, in fact, were the first election deniers in America. It wasn't us, lest you forget. Then the House of Representatives has a committee called the Intelligence Committee. The chairman of that committee was Devin Nunes. He wrote a memo called the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, the abuses of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Now, once that memo was complete, it was not to be released to the public at that time. But there began to be a hashtag on Twitter. See, this is where you connect the dots. And the hashtag was release the memo. Hashtag release the memo. It went viral. Well, all of the Democrats said that that was not really people that wanted them to release the memo. It was intelligence Russian bots that was making that go viral, not organically. It was being done by robots. They knew, ladies and gentlemen, they knew that Donald Trump was legitimately elected. The Department of Justice knew it, and the FBI knew it. They knew it. They knew he'd been legitimately elected because they knew by then that the Steele dossier was no good. They knew it was all based on a lie. And yet they still spied on a legitimately elected president of the United States and tried to destroy his presidency. I want you to remember these things, ladies and gentlemen. Why? I want you to remember why you owe Donald Trump another term in office. Because if you are not about justice, you're not about anything. You need to never forget what they put this man through to get to you. And you need to be reminded tonight why your yard sign needs to be out there. why this president needs to know that we are still Americans with liberty and justice for all, including Donald Trump. Now, according to the Nunes memo, former FBI Director Andrew McCabe admitted under oath, according to that memo, that there would have been no Russia investigation or no impeachment. What was the first impeachment? Failed impeachment. What was it about? Russia. According to Andrew McCabe, without the Steele dossier, there would never have been an investigation into Russia. Therefore, there would never have been an impeachment trial. It was all based on lies. You need never forget that, ladies and gentlemen, when you're talking about DeSantis. Nothing was stolen from DeSantis. It was stolen from Trump. And we must be the army that brings it back. The politicians and the spies used this false dossier to attack Trump, to make it look like Nunes was a Russian agent. That's right. They tried to say Nunes was colluding with the Russians as the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. Radical Democrats fought hard against releasing this memo. But Twitter Trend released the memo, kept going viral. And the Democrats said that that was nothing but Russian bots and trolls. Now, the Republicans ended up releasing the memo. Does anybody remember all that? To the public. And today we know that the Russian collusion was a deceit used to attack the president, his policies, and every one of you that voted for him. It was all lies. Ladies and gentlemen, wake up tonight. Return to your Trump fever. Return to the fever of justice. Remember what they did to the man and what they did to you. They didn't do it to Trump. Trump said they're not doing it to me. I'm in their way. They want to shut you down, so they must shut me down. And many of you have thought about going somewhere else because of a vaccine, because of this or because of that. Justice should override it all. Now, what does this have to do with Twitter 14.0? I'm so glad you asked. Because, ladies and gentlemen, what Twitter 14.0 shows is a letter. That's right. A letter that was written by Twitter. Twitter. And this letter was sent to three people, or two, I'm sorry. Senator Dianne Feinstein and Representative Adam Pencil-Neck Schiff. The letter was written when? On January the 26th, 2018, impeachment time. The letter came from Twitter, and here's what it said, and I quote, "We have not identified any significant activity connected to Russia with respect to tweets posting original content to release the memo hashtag." All right? Twitter 14.0 reveals the letter written from Twitter to the Democratic Party that you're wrong. That Nunes is not connected to Russia. Release the memo is not connected to Russia. Now, even though Twitter is full of Democrats, radical liberals, and former federal agents, even they, as much as they would love to have, could not find a link at all. Even the radical left Twitter executive, Yoel Roth, I've taught you about Yoel, had to admit in the letter, quote, "We investigated. We found that engagement of release the memo was organic." So here comes the letter to Dianne Feinstein and Adam Pencilneck Schiff. They've got the letter. They've got the letter from Twitter. Richard Blumenthal got the letter that it was real people demanding the release of the memo, not Russian bots. But at that point, did the Democrats say, okay, we give up? No. Oh, God, no. Oh, Lord, no. The next day, what did they announce? It was the Russians that were connected to the Nunes memo and the promoting of it. Feinstein, Schiff, and others delegitimized Representative Devin Nunes' research on the Russia-Trump probe even after the Horowitz report verified what Nunes put in his memo. Here's what Michael Horowitz said in 2019. The Nunes assertions would virtually all be verified in a report. And he tells how everything verified. Nevertheless, does that matter? Not in the land of Oz, it doesn't. Nevertheless, in February of 2018, remember, they got the memo from Twitter, January the 26th, 2018. Less than a month later, here's a direct quote. Nonetheless, national media in January and February denounced the Nunes report in oddly identical language, calling it a joke and a Russian collusion. But it wasn't a joke. The Nunes memo was one of the most sobering exposés in history. Nunes told in these words, Schiff and the Democrats falsely claimed Russians were behind the release the memo hashtag and all of my investigative work. By spreading the Russian collusion hoax, they instigated one of the greatest outbreaks of mass delusion in U.S. history. My God, that is so true. Everything has been a delusion. If you're watching me tonight, you're one of the few and the proud that are still purebloods, that still believe Donald Trump and the Russian collusion was a lie, that you didn't drink the Kool-Aid of these lies. You knew the truth. You stood for the truth. And one day your president will stand again in his rightful office if you will not be distracted. Now, Twitter file 15.0 shows a 10-tweet thread showing that Schiff, who succeeded Nunes in the leadership of the House Intelligence Committee, sent Twitter repeated requests for bans of the people that were critical of him. Ladies and gentlemen, you're living in a world of delusions. You're living in a world of lies. Only the strong will survive. Only the strong will truly, truly have their eyes open. You know, many people ask me, how can the majority of people be deceived? They're smart. They're doctors. They're lawyers. They're engineers. How could they all be deceived all at the same time? How's it possible, Professor Toto, for millions of people to experience a mass delusion, even while they think they're following the science? Ladies and gentlemen, here's the answer. The book of Psalms, chapter 14 and verse 1. And it says that non-believers are deceived into thinking there is no God. And then in Revelations 12 and 9, it says that Satan has deceived everybody except for the elect of God. The ones that God has chosen. I want to read one verse to you. The book of Job, chapter 9, verse 24. It says, the whole earth has been given into the hand of the wicked. God covers the faces of her judges. If not he, who is it? In other words, it's meant for the whole world to be deceived. Why? Because only in their deception are you able to recognize your election. That may be deeper than you're willing to receive right now. Only by their deception are you able to know who you are in Yahweh, in God. Only by seeing their mass delusions do you become thankful for eyes to see and ears to hear. If you're part of Toto's army tonight, your eyes have been opened. Your ears have been opened, ladies and gentlemen. You have not been deceived. Even when they were saying Russia, you knew better. You knew it. Somewhere deep inside, you knew it, beloved. When they were saying put on the mask, you knew. You don't even know how you knew. But there is a seed inside of you that will not be deceived. You have been chosen for the Lord's army. You have been chosen for this moment, for this hour, to be the final voices of truth. The final frontier of freedom is resting upon you. Don't ever, ever underestimate your ability to see and your ability to hear. Never, ever underestimate your freedom to think and your freedom to have common sense, and how God would not let you be deceived. When they were saying Russia, you were saying, no, I know better. And now it's been proven that what you knew was true. Good night.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, wide with God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
I ask not for riches. I ask not for fame. I ask for the nation in Jesus' name. I ask for America, With the congregation, sing, I ask for America. I ask for